Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mystic Breakfast. So the question today is, what do we need to understand about the current UFO and UAP disclosures? So at the time of the making of this video, at the end of May 2026, the Trump administration in the United States, along with the Department of War, as it's now called, have been releasing apparently declassified videos and other evidence relating to UFOs. There have even been rumors that President Trump may be due to give some kind of "we are not alone" speech in the near future. So this isn't a new topic. People have been coming forward and talking about this subject for decades and decades. Everything from people claiming to have seen strange lights in the sky, to claims that governments have retrieved crashed craft and bodies, to some people even saying that they've been abducted and been forced into some kind of alien-human hybridization program. And alongside all of this, there's always been accusations that the US government especially is very aware of what's going on and has been hiding it from the public. So, is Trump the guy who's finally going to set the record straight? Or does he have an ulterior motive? Is he hijacking the subject? Is this disclosure, or is it a distraction? Well, we're going to take a look with the cards, because if we let them, the tarot tells us the truth. So for this reading, we're going to use a triad spread. First, we're going to have 3 cards for the public, that's us. Then we're going to have 3 cards for the US government. And then we'll have 3 cards for the phenomenon itself. After that, we'll do some relationship cards between all the corners. And then we'll do a single card in the middle, which will represent the overall view of what's happening. So beginning with the public, we have the Hermit reversed. Okay, so that can be actually a strong indicator of not facing up to something. So upright, the Hermit is about wisdom and knowledge and reflection, that kind of thing. But here it's reversed. So instead of really looking inward and engaging with the mystery, there could be an indication of avoidance. There's also another layer to the Hermit reversed as well. It can also suggest something hidden or private being forced out. So something maybe that was once fringe or secretive coming into the open, that kind of thing. So that's interesting. So then we have the World. One context of the World is that it's about culmination and completion and graduation, that kind of thing. It can mean kind of full circle, basically. So in this context with the public, it could mean that the public is essentially, you could say it's ready for this kind of thing, maybe, but it just isn't engaging with it currently. And then finally, the Two of Cups. I think for the Two of Cups, it can indicate a move towards unity. So you can see the 2 guys on here sharing a drink. It can indicate partnership, emotional connection, that kind of thing. So it could mean that, again, it can, if you compound it on top of the World there, it can mean that the public is ready to engage with this kind of thing, really. I don't think it's only about people coming together with each other, maybe. It's about the public coming into the relationship with the unknown, perhaps, because there has been a growing interest in this subject, despite the fact that, most people are hiding away from it and have been conditioned to think it's, all a load of nonsense or Hollywood stuff. That has been changing over recent years, I think. Right, so let's move on to the government cards. So let's put these up here. And the first one we have is the Queen of Swords reversed. So I think interesting, because the Queen of Swords reversed can actually mean distortion of information sometimes. So upright, the Queen of Swords should be clean, sharp, and truthful. She's actually about cutting through confusion, but reversed, that clarity can become jumbled information or selective information. So it can become kind of strategic weapon and weaponization of information. That's interesting. So yeah, interesting there. So, and strength reversed as the next card. So this can indicate a lack of inner strength when it's reversed. It can indicate a desire to appear strong, but actually from a place of weakness and anxiety, that kind of thing, basically. So it can mean the performance of control. And then we have the Four of Pentacles. So, what's this guy doing? He's holding onto his stuff. He's grasping onto it. So this is a control card, really. So when you put these cards together, we have a distorted and contrived communication here, weakness beneath the surface, and then a drive to manage something here, manage and control, grip onto and control something. So that's very interesting. This implies that maybe the direction is not openness, actually. It could actually still be containment, even though the subject is supposed revelations. It can mean holding on to something and, almost fear. Strength reverse can mean fear as well. So interesting. You could argue that this is not a great indicator of pure motives for this supposed disclosure. So let's look at the phenomenon itself. So we have the Ace of Pentacles here. So one of the classic readings of this card, especially if you look at the artwork here, is a gift being given, and a gift of experience, because it's the pentacles, so it's about the world and material reality in a way. The gift of worldly experience and potential, and it's actually coming from the clouds in this artwork. But the Ace of Pentacles, it's about materialization, so it can mean something starting to move into the world or become physical. That's interesting. So you could argue that really this is about, if this is the phenomenon, it's about it becoming not just myth or rumor anymore, perhaps. It's about materialization and starting to come into our reality, because this question is about our reality. Interesting. So what is next for these guys? So the Six of Swords. So reversed, these guys are going across a river. So the Six of Swords, it can mean communication and trying to get something across the river, but it's reversed. So it can indicate that there's difficulty with this, basically. It can mean that the passage is blocked, or there's issues, or there's kind of risk around it, essentially. So something trying to get from one place to another, perhaps from, in this context, mystery to explanation. But there's complications with it, basically. Okay, so next we have the Six of Wands. And Six of Wands it's about recognition, actually. So it can really possibly about the phenomenon wanting to be known. It's about moving towards public recognition. So, maybe it thinks these guys are ready, if that's what it wants. Okay, so let's move on to the relationships. So first we'll do from the government to the public this way. So we have the Eight of Swords. So look at that. So that's about restriction. And this person here is actually being restricted by their mind, by information, by intellect. So this can mean ideas and communication as well. So they're bound and they're blinded by ideas and information. So, this could really go along with the classic conspiratorial view of the government attempting to keep the public in the dark. This person has a blindfold on. The men in black, the secrecy, that kind of thing, the restricted files, the sense that we're only going to be allowed to see so much around this. But an important thing with the Eight of Swords is that the prison is partly made of perception. It's not that some maybe, because that's what this is about. This is about the information. Right, so from the public to the government this way. We have the Five of Cups. So with this card, look at this guy here. He's kind of mourning, he's let down, he's disappointed. It can mean grief. In this context, I think it can mean that it can indicate, as we all know, there's a real loss of faith in governance generally from the perception of the public towards the US government. There's a sense of resignation and exhaustion, low trust, basically. I think that most people who hear about this, I assume, still have very little faith that the government has positive motives here, especially how polarizing Donald Trump can be. I think either they think it's a distraction or a psyop, or that most of the truth is being held back. I think that highlights this very clearly, actually. Right, so from the phenomenon to the government, going this way. Okay. So that's the Seven of Cups. So that is quite an interesting one. This card can be about overwhelming choices and illusions. So look at this. Look at all these cups being presented with all these hats and faces on. So this can be about many options being offered, but also about confusion and in some way kind of temptation around these options. It can mean that there's too many possibilities. So you could argue that maybe the government is trying to deal with this thing but can't stay grounded. It's overwhelmed by what this stuff can mean. That's very interesting. I'd love to hear what people think about that one. And then going this way, from the government to the phenomenon. So the Ace of Swords. So I think this can mean a desire for exploitation in this sense. In the form of analysis. And so the swords are very much about the intellect. They're not a kind of emotional or spiritual aspect. It's really about possibly turning this into something useful. The Ace of Swords, it's about starting something. It's about gleaning some kind of momentum from something, get something going. It's a very mentally driven card, so it's about control and classification again. And when you look at it in conjunction with the Seven of Cups here, I think going the other way, I think it can indicate that possibly they might be missing the point. The government is coming at this with Ace of Swords, trying to cut through and define it. But the phenomenon is coming this way with the Seven of Cups, which is some way ambiguity and illusion and too many possibilities. So there's a definite mismatch there. Okay, so let's go this way. From the phenomenon to the public, we have the King of Wands, card about leadership and vision and real force of personality. The King of Wands, he knows the truth and he speaks the truth, basically. He acts from the strength of his will. So you could say the phenomenon has a desire to command, or is imposing its will in this direction on the public. This card can be about igniting vision and belief, But there's also with this card, there is an authoritarian aspect, actually, like a dominating aspect. So that's interesting. Right, and going the other way. So from the public to the phenomenon, we have the Ten of Swords reversed. So I think, as with the public to the government, I think this may indicate a sense of burnout again. What's interesting is that I think this card could work in a couple of ways. It can work from the skepticism that people feel towards so-called disclosures. Again, there can be a sense of defeat and exhaustion with this card, especially in the reversed direction. With all the things that have been coming out in the news or the claims or the rumors or the other stuff going on, it looks like this can mean people are being told the truth, but they're tired or something. They're tired of the endless revelations and information that they're being fed all the time. With this card reversed, though, it can actually mean that defeat is over or the worst is over. It can actually mean letting go of the past and moving on to something new after defeat or after difficult times. So this might actually indicate that the public are tired of the subject in a way, but also slowly becoming ready to move beyond their old way of seeing it. Possibly. Okay, and finally we're going to pull a card which is going to give us an overview of the entire thing here. We have the Seven of Pentacles reversed. So this card, it can mean frustrated results. So this is about harvest, essentially. But reversed, it can mean failed harvest, that kind of thing. Frustrated results, lack of progress, wasted effort, that kind of thing. I think really it could be saying that the public, the government, and the phenomenon, it's probably this relationship and this disclosure could actually not be yielding what it could. So it indicates that there's effort here, there's potential, but these results are going to be frustrated, essentially. The card is reversed. It isn't being, there is a harvest, potential for harvest, but it's not happening. It says there's a lot of energy going in, but it's going to fall short. Although I don't really feel that it means all of this is a complete waste of time. It shows that in the way it's being handled at the moment, it's not going to produce progress. The process is not maturing properly. It's a frustrated harvest now, based on these dynamics we're seeing and based on the intentions here. So just a recap, the public here, for the most part, is currently shying away from the subject. We're not fully engaging with it, but underneath that, there is a sense that we may actually be ready for what the truth of this subject is, and ultimately we could be benefiting from it, I think. With the government here, the US government, I think this indicates, as people probably believe, it's hijacking the issue for its own reasons. Although there is a sense of internal conflict going on with these cards, I think. It's not necessarily a uniform thing. It's not perfectly controlled, but there is actually a strong sense of control and restriction, and holding on for self-protection possibly, especially with this guy here. And with the phenomenon, it sees itself as trying to give something, but also communicate it and make itself known. But it's having a hard time in doing so without causing major problems here with this, this card here, the reversed Six of Swords. It's having issues communicating what it's trying to get across. Although again, there's a controlling element here from it as well. So, this guy can be, the King of Wands can be authoritarian and controlling. So what's that about? Okay, so really this means this isn't going to be a clean disclosure. There might be some progress, but ultimately there's going to be a lot of confusion and frustration. And a frustrated harvest. There we have it. So I'd love to hear any thoughts you have about this in the comments section. I'll also be revisiting this subject as well as plenty of other weird stuff going forward. So make sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to join in with those. Thanks a lot and see you next time.